And we're live. Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to the Hebrew Woman Show. I'm your host, Renaissance Woman, aka Ren Judah, and I'm here with Zell. Zell,
Greetings.
last
Yes.
night I did the next chapter of the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, and that landed us because the previous week we did the Law of Addition. And so last night led me to the Law of Solid Ground. And I don't know if everybody remembers, but we were supposed to be doing the 21 most powerful minutes in a leader's day. And that was just kind of some readings on what you read in the chapter. It's a companion book for the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. So I wanted to touch on some things that Maxwell talks about. He brought Maxwell up as an example for the law of solid ground, which I thought, and it makes me now, I'm going to have to say, because it's been a while, I'm going to have to go back and read Samson again because, I always say Samson's story is a story about community betrayal. And
Mm.
because, the Israelites are supposed to stay with their own. And his parents even told him, don't marry that woman. And he did it anyway. I'm not going to use the word that I would typically use for this scenario, but the bottom line is he was just outright disobedient, and it
Mm.
led to his downfall. So we'll get into that, and then I want to talk about, and it just kind of makes me. I've been looking at lately YouTube and how in Black YouTube in particular, as we like to call it, and just the change that it went through. And I will say that I believe that this is a case for the law of solid ground. And I think a lot of times Black content creators are not on the law of solid ground because they're not really looking at the terrain, I think, in a way that is realistic. Because I think for some reason people seem to think that when they're on social media, they're operating inside some little bubble, but there are actually groups. And I've just run across all of the even Black um, philosophers and sociologists who have released books talking about not only the algorithm but also Black YouTube, and have just been following the content creators. And to the point of a video that I made the other day, which I will be releasing on the Renaissance Woman show, talking about what did they build, because there is a YouTuber named Cynthia G, and she was always asking the Black men, well, what did you build? And she was saying, well, you didn't build anything. Black men haven't built anything that is that gives Black women a reason to follow them.
Mm.
And so and in my mind, it kind of created a situation where they kind of have created their own type of MGTOW movement where Black women were going their own way and they're showing up as in their mind leaders. And then so we have to examine, well, what did you build with your leadership? And my argument is they didn't build anything either. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and jump right into our slideshow. So again, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. I hope you're enjoying your day. It's a rainy day here in St. Louis, and I am just in here resting and enjoying my Sabbath. What about you, Sam?
Pretty much the same. I'm enjoying it, relaxing a little bit, got time to really think about things, spending some time outside, just looking at nature. Because I have trees and things around me. So I'm really absorbing that. And it's been great. It's been a beautiful day.
Wonderful. So, as always, the purpose of this show is for us to explore our biblical principles. And in exploring our biblical principles, what does that mean? So, for you, Zell, when I talk about exploring your biblical principles, and I have this slide up every day that we do this
Hmm.
show, what does that mean to you?
It means to me, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? And how does that show up in my day to day life?
Exactly. So, guys, me having these same slides, there's a reason why I do this every time, because it is a reminder. Just like if you're logging daily and you're self reflecting and you're examining yourself, The purpose of that examination is for you to explore your biblical principles. Am I living these principles? Am I walking this walk? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
2 Corinthians 13:5 tells us to examine ourselves. Examine yourselves, whether ye be in the faith, prove your own selves. Know ye not your own selves how Christ is in you, except ye be reprobate. And so that's another thing that requires a level of honesty that I think we're not often ready or willing to give? Are we being honest about our mind state? Because I think at times everybody falls into reprobate behaviors or thoughts. There are times you might be driving and maybe you get so mad at somebody, you're like, oh, you have a road rage incident. That's reprobate, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
we when they say you imagine a million little murders and things like that of
Mm-hmm.
wanting to do people harm or just wishing bad luck on people. And that leads me to talk about that's why I like the law of solid ground because while while I'm doing this deep dive into the YouTube space, it just has made me look at are we operating on solid ground when we're looking at black voices in media? And are we operating from a position of strength or are we losing ground? So we're here to train ourselves to think biblically and not emotionally. Emotions are God given, they are real, but wisdom
Mm-hmm.
is our responsibility. We do not suppress our emotions, we submit to the truth. So, yeah, and like this is where you get into just the honesty of it all. A lot of times, what you are feeling in the moment when you have time to examine yourself and recalibrate, you'll often find that a lot of times what you're feeling is not real. Louise Hay has a saying that what you're dealing with, it's only a thought, and a
Mm-hmm.
thought can change. So a lot of times what is holding you back and hindering you is not the situation, it is how you are thinking about the situation. And so that's why we have to slow down and examine ourselves and see where we're at and if what we're feeling is really legitimate or are we just being emotional, you know? So when we talk about emotions and being led by the Spirit, we want to talk about the fruits of the Spirit. It says the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, long suffering, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, and temperance. Sometimes if you just want to check in and see where you are, just print you out a copy of the fruits of the Spirit. And
Mm-hmm.
before you act, just examine that and say, am I operating from any of these principles? And if I'm not, then maybe I need to recalibrate. Because Ephesians 4:26 says, be angry, but sin not. Be ye angry and sin not. Let not the sun go down upon thy wrath. So, and that just doesn't go for being angry. That goes for being jealous, resentful. With all these negative emotions that you're often feeling sometimes, examine it, look at it, and don't let the sun go down on that without you addressing it, examining yourself, and coming back and maybe you need to make another decision. Okay? We feel, but we don't follow every feeling. We think, we test, we choose what is right. And at the end of the day, that is what we're supposed to do. The Bible says that a balanced weight is a delight to the Lord, a just weight. So this is
Mm-hmm.
about balance, making sure that we're in balance. Do you have anything? Zell, did you want to add anything or?
Oh no. No.
Okay. So we strive to be women of Titus here. We're here to speak things that become sound doctrine. We're here to embody the behaviors that are laid out in Titus 2 and 1 through 5. These are important guiding principles and um, virtues that you want to make sure that you are embodying, being sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, and charity and patience. That you're not a false accuser, that you are behaving in a way that becometh holiness. Teach us of good things. Why? So that you can teach the younger women and children. That is your purpose here. You are here to leave a legacy behind, a legacy of faith, integrity, What are you teaching your children? What are you exemplifying around you? Are you leading with wisdom? And are you a provider of wise counsel? Proverbs 11 and 14 says, where no counsel is, the people fall, but in a multitude of counselors there is safety. Do you have wise counsel around you? Who is on your personal board of directors? Who do you have around you that can let you know when you're going down the wrong path? And if you don't have that, and if you are the type of person that you cannot listen to sound judgment, you need to examine yourself. Proverbs 29 and 18 says, where there is no vision, the people will perish. The people perish. But he that keepeth the law is happy. So at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we are doers, hearers, and keepers of the law. So, Jill, you have anything you want to add to that? I really think that those scriptures are important, and that's why I lead with them every show like I do, because for me, like that is the foundation of what we're doing here.
Mm.
So last night when we covered, I went ahead and did the law of, the previous week we did the law of addition. Last night we covered the law of solid ground. And so, for the Maxwell Daily Reader that we were supposed to be covering, the 21 most powerful minutes in the leader's day, I thought it was interesting that he led with Samson. And
Mm.
so Samson and the law of solid ground. The leadership thought for the day is trust is formed by a leader's character and credibility. So we covered character and your credibility. Like, what kind of character do you have? Like, can people trust you? Can your children trust you? Your family? Can people know that when you say something that you're going to do what you say you do? Is your word your bond? What does your word mean? You know, did this make it larger for you on screen?
Let's see.
The slideshow.
Yeah, a little bit, but I'm not going to be able to see it because I'm on my phone.
Okay,
I'm not on my tablet.
so I'm just gonna exit out of there then, because basically this slide it just talks about the law of solid ground a bit here. And let me see if I can just go over here to it real quick. And basically it says, as you practice this law, you become a parent. I mean, when you become a parent, God's approach to their children. God, wait a minute. As you practice this law, you become a parent. Good parents approach their kids with purpose, assessment, relationship, empowerment, and navigation and tools. So for purpose is they don't pass on the truth accidentally. So with purpose, that means we are being intentional in our actions. That we are purposeful with how we move and what we're sharing and what we're teaching. That's why, like even for this channel, we have a foundation that we set as we go into our lessons. So I ask you today, are you leading with purpose at home, at work, at play, whatever you are doing? Do you know why you're doing it? And are you just still stumbling and fumbling around here and accidentally finding your way into situations? And if you are, then I would encourage you to come up with a plan. And this is where the assessment comes in. You need to assess your situation. You need to evaluate where you are. It says for the principle of of assessment, they evaluate where their children need to grow and where they aren't strong. So not just coming from a parental perspective, because this is talking about God as our parents, right? As our parent. But for you, in whatever you're doing, whether it's with your team, whether it's with your children, your relationships, are you evaluating where you are and how you need to grow? And so with relationships, are you warm? Are you approachable? Do you furnish love in safe places? Empowerment, the next virtue they have listed here. They provide their kids with confidence and confidence that they need. Are you a provider of, just think about your staff? Are you somewhere where they can go and be reassured? Are you able to teach them? Are you able to lead them with confidence and instill a sense of confidence in them, and that they know that what you have given them, that they are moving confidently because you have given them the right resources. If we go back to navigation, the law of navigation, you give direction. So can people trust that you are steering them where they need to go? And lastly, the
Mm,
tools. Are you furnishing the tools that people need to win in life, at work, at home, at play? Are you who are you what are you raising? Who are you coaching?
mm,
Who are you teaching?
mm.
Are you teaching winners or losers? So what do you got?
I'm actually looking forward to discussing Samson. I tell you,
Okay.
because I think that it's going to have it's gonna it's gonna really make us rethink how we apply these principles to our life. And
Hmm.
in my mind, it makes me rethink, okay, well, what kind of leader was Samson? What was he doing? And what kind of impact did that have on his people? Why was he married? Why did he marry who he married? Where did his discipline fail? I just, I'm
So
really
this is
looking
where we're going to
forward.
go into this next slide. So it'll make sense
Yeah.
when we go to the writing for the day. It said, "What followers want in a leader? They want to see contrition from their leader. They want to spot convictions in their leader. They want to join the cause of their leader. They want consistency, confidence, and courage." Okay. So let's just get right into the lesson. So the leadership thought for the day is, it takes time to grow as a leader. Yeah, wait a minute. That's just right. Because when I dropped it, no, I'm sorry, guys. I went back too far. I'm all the way at the law of navigation. Here we are, the law of solid ground. So trust is the foundation of leadership. Leader's history of success and failures makes a big difference in his credibility. It's a little like earning and spending pocket change. Each time you make a good leadership decision, it puts change in your pocket. And every time you make a poor decision, it takes some of your change to the people, out from the people. Every leader has a certain amount of change in their pocket when he starts in a new leadership position. From then on, he either builds up his change or he pays out. To build trust, the leader must exemplify these qualities: confidence, connection, and character. People will forgive occasional mistakes based on ability, especially if they can see you're still growing as a leader, but they won't trust someone who slips in character. And in that area, even occasional lapses are lethal. So, and I do think that's true. People will forgive you if you make a mistake. You say, hey, I got that wrong, especially if you'll come and you will admit it and you're honest about, where you went wrong, and people can forgive that. But when people see real character flaws in you, when they see that your ethics are questionable, your behavior is questionable, I do think that people are tend to stop. Not only do they not respect you, but they don't follow you, and they'll just go along. And also, when you really need them, they will stand by and watch you fall, because nobody really wants to support someone who lacks integrity. No leader can break trust with his people and expect to keep influencing them. Trust makes leadership possible. From solid ground in the 21 irrefutable laws of leadership. Okay. So, day one, here we're talking about Samson and the law of common ground. Leadership thought for the day: trust is formed by a leader's character and credibility. So, your assignment is to read First Judges 13, chapter 13, verse 1 and 16 through 13. How could someone who was given so much of a strong start in life finish so poorly? By all accounts, Samson could have been one of Israel's greatest leaders. Yet, when all was said and done, he turned out to be one of the worst. Strong start, weak finish. Samson had everything going for him. He was a special child, foretold by the angel of the Lord to his parents. He had a divine destiny and purpose. Scripture reports that the angel said, "The child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall deliver the people of Israel out of the hand of the Philistines." That's Judge 13 and 5. And even as a child, Samson was blessed by God and the Spirit of God was upon him. Judges 13:24 through 25. Samson performed many feats of strength during his life. He judged Israel for 20 years. Yet, despite a good start, Samson got himself into trouble many times, and in the end, he finished poorly. He was weak, blind, and enslaved to the Philistines from whom he was supposed to deliver his people. Why didn't Samson become the great leader he had the potential to be? He was his despicable character made him untrustworthy, and that destroyed his leadership. He was impetuous, volatile, lustful, moody, emotional, and unpredictable. No one could figure out his intentions, not his new wife, his father in law, or the Israelites. And the people bound him up and delivered him to the Philistines to save their own necks. Samson's untrustworthiness extended to God. Before he had finished, he broke the vows of the Nazarite. First, before his marriage, he touched the dead animal, Judges 14 and 19 and 14 and 9. Second, he gave a wedding feast that included much drinking, Judges 14 and 10. And when he finally broke the third vow by allowing his hair to be cut, God removed him God removed the anointing from his life, Judges 16:19 through 20, and Samson repeatedly flirted with disaster and it overtook him. So, what what do you think? I also think we could even just go to um, that
Yes.
book as well.
What's that
If
current, when I think about Samson, the first thing I think is what is the phrase they use now? He started to believe his own press clippings. He thought he was not, because I mean, when you have been, destined for greatness and this has been something that's said all your life, it made me wonder,
Mhm.
did he think he couldn't lose it? Did he think it wasn't gonna be taken away? I mean, why would you even flirt with that?
I
And
think that level of arrogance happens to a lot of people. I think you're raising a good point that you start to believe your own hype, like you say, get high off your own supply.
because I mean, and that's really what happened. And the sad part about it is, after his first wife, you would have thought he would not have gone back and play tempted fate again. Why would you go back and deal with another woman from there again after his wife? Now you're dealing with Delilah. I don't understand that. Or at the very least, not put yourself in a position where you're vulnerable like that. But he didn't. I mean, the people, his family, he didn't listen. He wouldn't listen to anybody.
Hmm.
Why? And it's just, and you're absolutely right, arrogance.
Yep.
Because I mean, and it makes you think, when you start, people talk about being in leadership. I believe that is um, one of the biggest things that you have to protect against is becoming arrogant, because it's so easy to do when everyone loves you, they appreciate you, you have a level of authority, there are things that you're catered to, you have all of this going, and you can start to believe that you can do no wrong, that everything is gonna go your way. And what does he say? I mean, at the end of the day, you can think you're not going to go any wrong. As soon as pride enters in, as soon as arrogance enters in, you're going to head for a fall, and it's going to be disastrous, which is exactly what happened to Samson. And it's
Hard
just,
headed.
ooh,
His parents told him there's not a woman from your own community that you can be
mhm,
with rather than those people. But he just had to have her, and she was one of the things that she was the primary cause in the end of his downfall. And
mhm.
for me, she kept playing with him, and he still wouldn't learn. And I know people like that right now who have situations where people are playing with them, and they still won't get it. You just keep going back. And I think we've all done that sometimes in some way. We've all played with and flirted with danger because we thought we could control it. And I think that's another thing that you learn from Samson. You're not smarter than the people who came before you, his friends and
Mm-hmm.
people around him trying to give him wise counsel. And I can even think about my own self at times where I just didn't want to listen because I thought I had it.
And it happened twice. Think about what happened with his first wife. She ended up telling the answer. And then think about what happened with Delilah. And then well, look what it took. Look what it took before he realized what he had done. He had to end
Hmm.
up bound, blinded,
Yeah.
tied to the posts, made fun of. I mean, all of that had to happen before he realized, maybe I messed up. Maybe
Yeah,
that
he
was
had to be humbled in a devastating way.
and now you want to pray. Yeah,
And even in that, you see the Lord still answered him.
exactly.
That's how much he loves us.
hmm And imagine if he could have kept that under control, that if he could have maintained discipline, what his accomplishments could have been if he wouldn't have
Hmm.
given in to that temptation, if he could have just held on.
There are so many lessons that I think that a lot of times people just overlook in the Bible about how we live our daily lives and our own arrogance, our own unwillingness to listen, our own unwillingness to bend and be obedient to God, and just even in our disobedience, He still comes to the rescue in the end. And it just makes me think in terms of leadership, or how are you showing up in ways where you're so arrogant where you can't listen to wise counsel? Do you think you know everything? Are you the type of person who your arrogance is going to be your downfall?
Exactly.
So, and I see, and so, back to the point that I was making earlier about as I do this exploration of YouTube. As a matter of fact, when we were talking earlier, I was telling you I had scrolled through here and there's a video a young lady is talking about how a lot of YouTubers are, and listen, I don't care like whether people want to accept this or believe it or not. They call you influencers for a reason. You are influencing people and you have a certain amount of responsibility with how you conduct yourself on these airways or whatever, however you're broadcasting and however you're broadcasting, you have a level of responsibility. And it made me look at, for example, the BWE movement, and I just was thinking about where did they go? And I have that video. I'm going to post that video today because it really just really struck me how when we talk about leadership in the Black community and how Black voices are present in media, and what
Mm.
I saw, especially once I was off YouTube for about 3 years, and I would come back here and there, kind of hit or miss, but during that time, we saw BWE continue, just disappear. And BWE was supposed to be about Black women's empowerment, but what it ended up being was a lot of women just cannibalizing each other. And I still see this
Mhm.
in Black media on here today. There's a content creator right now that says God told her to cancel Clarissa Shields, and as I know, that God is not instructing you to cancel anybody's channel. Okay, the fact that you would even use that as a message to people is a problem for me, and it's misleading. And I think there's some probably some issues going on there with that. But is Clarissa Shields' behavior inappropriate? Absolutely. And I would say, especially for people who are Christians, because I think Christianity is really interesting. Most of us, I say, grew up in the Christian faith and
Right.
didn't learn to read the Bible and know the Bible like I do now that I study Torah and am a keeper of Torah. We are believers in the Bible, the whole Bible from front to back. I follow Christ, and a lot of the things that I see being said, it just doesn't. it's not of a Christ mind from my perspective. And I just was like, I just could not see myself getting on here telling anybody that God told me to do anything to you.
Mm.
And it reminded me of when I was in church. Older people, they would really, in the church, would really manipulate young members a lot, telling them, God told me to come and tell you such and such. And that's what that podcast made me think of. You
Mm.
know, we want to see people doing well. We want to see them better. We don't want to see people living in sin. And I definitely am not a person who will want to see anybody lose their livelihood. And for me personally, I think that that's the Most High will take care of that.
Right.
He will decide if she is going to be counseled. I don't want to have my hands on anything because I just don't want that energy coming back to me. I think if anything, you can talk about the behaviors. And so this is where it brought me to the whole issue of celebrity gossip. And I really tend to be, I don't like celebrity gossip in the sense of I don't think I need to discuss what somebody was wearing. The way people get into celebrity gossip, they get in it in the point where they're discussing their intimate relationships and what they wore, and this was a mess, and just I don't like any of that because I just don't think I would want to be examined in that way. However, I could see a benefit of, especially if it's a public example. For example, like when we talked about the Cheyenne Bryant situation, my intent is not about. It was not. You notice we didn't get all off into her relationships or anything because I don't think it's relevant. What was relevant to me was from a leadership perspective, right here, when you're talking about this particular law, the law of solid ground. She lost solid ground because she has lost trust
Mm-hmm.
publicly. So to me, and when it comes to the lessons, I think that's when you can use it as a very public example. Clarissa Shields is a boxer. She's prominent. She's out there. Her behavior, dealing with this married man, even if it doesn't matter if him and Remy Ma are still together, they're still married, and you're still carrying on in a way that is embarrassing to you as an individual. But she's so, like you say, with Samson, high on her own supply that she can't see that she's making a mockery of herself and really cutting herself off from a lot of opportunities and endorsements that and all of this what she's doing is to her own hurt and detriment, much like Samson did. She is an example of a person who is strong and is losing solid ground because of her conduct. And ultimately, that fall, I pray for her that it's not a fall like Samson, where you're going to lose everything in boxing because you cannot control your spirit because you refuse to examine yourself.
That
And
is
so,
so true. Because
mhm,
especially
go
in
ahead.
boxing, I was gonna say, especially in boxing, if you're not focused, you will definitely not win. You will definitely fall apart. And there have been other boxers that has exactly been the thing that has happened to. They have not been focused in what they were doing, and it did not take long before their eyes are on everything else that's around them. Same thing with Samson. They get caught up in all the hype and they're not
Yep,
doing what they need to do. And somebody else comes along that's a little bit hungrier for it. You've lost a step, and then you find out that yeah, they end up losing some fight that, and it's just like, man, they really got beat down. I don't understand. They were so, and I mean, I would name some names, but I'm gonna not do that. But yeah,
and you can argue like, oh no, she's strong, she's doing like, but listen, Samson reigned for 20 years.
exactly.
So this is what we're talking about. You can finish, you can start strong, but how did he finish? So I think that is, and this is how I always know that you don't have wise counsel around you because if anybody was around, because I look at Boots And what's the other little young guy right now that's coming up? A little boxing phenom. I can't remember his name right now, but he has his dad and his brothers around him, and you don't ever hear any of the level of foolishness coming out about them that you see with Clarissa Shields. And and here's the thing: black women are not going to get the layer of protection that white athletes, men either. And this is why I think it's important that they make sure they protect their names and they have people around them that is making sure they're good and they're listening. Because I thought it was interesting, like with all the mess that's going on with Clarissa Shields and Papoose, I can look and I can see Bunny and Jelly Roll. I see Bunny on her podcast, the Dumb Blonde podcast. When you Google her, mostly what comes up and when you search her on YouTube is primarily her podcast and the things that she wanted to share. It's almost like the system has insulated her. I saw like three bloggers, Joe Budden and two other white bloggers, come up in the search for her. But it's so insulated. And I look at black female athletes and content creators. When you search for them, on social media. Every bad thing that can possibly be said or exist about them comes up quickly and with no problem. And so I do think that it's algorithmic. I do think it's purposeful. I do think that it is programmed to suppress those type of stories about white uh, people in media. They have a layer of protection and insulation that goes around them. And what is crazy to me that if you even talk to the AI about it, it just it will flat out. As a matter of fact, let me see just to give you an example. Watch this. So I'm gonna ask Gemini, can it explain to us why we see that difference? Gemini, can you tell me why does it seem like when I search for information on Clarissa Shields in the YouTube algorithm, every blogger that's saying anything negative about her or her situation with Papoose is like is prolific. It's just tons of it. And when I look at the situation with Jelly Roll and Bunny, they if they were black, they would be getting the same type of treatment. Is there an algorithmic protection around these creators, and why does it look so different for black creators? It's searching the web. Hold on, it doesn't play. Hold on one second. I thought this was very, normally there must be an update. Oh, there it is. What you are noticing is a very real, documented divergence in how these creators are treated. And it comes down to a structural mix of platform economics, corporate PR infrastructure, and deep-seated cultural double standards. When you look at Clarissa Shields and Papoose compared to Jelly Roll and Bunny XO, the difference in your feed isn't an illusion. It is the result of how distinct digital ecosystems operate, monetize, and protect their subjects. One, the economics of content ecosystems. The YouTube algorithm doesn't necessarily have a manual switch that treats creators differently based on race, but it scales and amplifies human behavior and monetization strategies. The black celebrity commentary space. This sector of YouTube is highly decentralized, fiercely competitive, and intensely lucrative. Bloggers in this space have figured out that relationship friction, fast-breaking drama, and controversy drive astronomical click-through rates, center, and viewer retention. Because the algorithm rewards whatever keeps eyes on the screen, a wave of negative videos about Clarissa and Papoose creates a feeding frenzy. The algorithm sees the surge in engagement and pushes those videos to the top of search results. The mainstream slash country pop space, Jelly Roll and Bunny XO, exist in a completely different algorithmic neighborhood. The mainstream music and country music ecosystems on YouTube are heavily driven by official releases, highly produced lifestyle vlogs, and structural fan communities that actively mass report or drown out negative content with positive engagement. Two, the redemption shield versus hyper scrutiny.
There is a stark contrast in how messiness or unconventional backgrounds are packaged and consumed across different demographics. The mainstream redemption narrative, Jelly Roll and Bunny XO, have built their massive platform on an explicitly marketed outlaw to redemption arc. Their past struggles, legal run-ins, and unconventional relationship dynamics are framed by mainstream media and audiences as an inspiring, authentic triumph over adversity. The hyper-scrutiny of Black public figures, for Black creators, and particularly dark-skinned Black women who excel in male-dominated spaces like Claressa Shields, an undisputed multi-weight world champion. The grace extended for personal choices or relationship dynamics is drastically thinner. Instead of being granted a redemption arc or privacy, their personal lives are frequently policed, picked apart, and weaponized. What is viewed as authentic and raw for a white creator is often categorized as ghetto or messy for a Black creator. 3. The illusion of algorithmic protection, corporate PR. The algorithmic protection you are sensing is often the invisible hand of high-tier, well-funded corporate brand protection. A-list mainstream artists backed by major labels have dedicated legal and public relations teams that execute aggressive reputation management. When negative or defamatory content surfaces about figures like Jelly Roll, 1. PR teams quickly push out a flood of positive press releases and interviews to bury the negative search terms. 2. Legal teams actively leverage copyright strikes, Digital Millennium Copyright Act /DMCA, or terms of service violations to get highly damaging videos quietly scrubbed from the platform. Independent public figures, or those operating within standard hip-hop or urban sports management networks, rarely have that level of aggressive, proactive digital asset protection. This leaves them exposed to a decentralized army of independent commentary channels that can target them without fear of corporate retaliation. The takeaway: the algorithm isn't necessarily coded to hate one group and protect another. Rather, it is an unfeeling machine that maximizes profit. It amplifies the hyper-scrutiny and lack of institutional PR protection that Black creators face, while rewarding the heavily engineered, highly profitable redemption narratives of mainstream white creators.
Well, now, did you hear that?
That I did not know that. That is wild. So it goes back to they are controlling the narrative of their people, and Black people are not necessarily controlling their own narrative.
And
Wow.
it's so decentralized that there is no layer of protection. Carissa, we don't have corporate protection. You see right now. As a matter of fact, we can ask them about this. Let's see. So what you're saying, like in Clarissa Shields' case, is she doesn't have the corporate backing or protection to insulate her, and her going solo is even a bigger contributing factor to that. Not to mention her own continual responses to social media. But I would say, but Bunny, she has her own podcast, and she's releasing messages and talking about that. And you still don't see even a bunch of videos of content creators taking her videos and picking them apart to discuss her. And I just thought, even with the Joe Budden clip of it, it seemed like they were very careful about how they addressed that situation, because I think they understand that there's a corporate machine behind the protection. And so, really, Clarissa Shields' behavior not only does it act against her even worse because she doesn't have that protection, she can't get it because of her behavior. Would that be accurate?
You're absolutely right. You are at this is that's something she
You
really
hit
would
the
have
nail on
had
the
to.
head. That is a
Oh,
highly accurate diagnostic breakdown of the exact loop Clarissa Shields is trapped in, and why Bunny XO's platform functions so differently despite her being highly vocal online. There are two distinct dynamics happening here: the mechanics of going solo, and the legal slash corporate trap of the feedback loop. 1. Going solo means raw exposure. When Clarissa Shields operates independently or goes solo without a legacy corporate PR engine insulating her, she doesn't just lose marketing power, she loses her digital firewall. The difference with Bunny XO: while Bunny has her own podcast, Dumb Blonde, and openly addresses heavy personal topics, she operates with a massive implicit backing network. The mainstream spaces she and Jelly Roll navigate are heavily protected by major music labels, top-tier management agencies, and multi-million-dollar corporate stakeholders. The Joe Budden effect. Your observation of the Joe Budden clip is spot on. Mainstream commentary giants and media platforms know exactly where the invisible lines are drawn. They are incredibly careful when addressing figures backed by that level of corporate machinery, because crossing those lines can lead to back-end consequences: loss of industry access, pulled sponsorships, network strikes, or swift legal pushback. With Claressa, the commentary space perceives zero threat of retaliation. Because she is independent, bloggers know they can pick her apart, mischaracterize her situation with papoose, and extract pure algorithmic profit from her name without a massive corporate legal team coming down on them. 2. The algorithmic trap of continual responses. This is the second part of your point, and it's the most damaging cycle. Because Claressa doesn't have that corporate firewall to fight the battles for her, she steps into the ring herself via social media responses. Strategically, this acts against her in two devastating ways. A. She feeds the content factories. Every time Claressa goes live, tweets, or fires back at a critic, she isn't silencing them. She is giving them raw material. The 30-second passionate response from her becomes a 20-minute video for 5 different commentary channels. She becomes the chief content provider for the very people tearing her down. B. The PR catch-22. Why it prevents future protection. You made a profound point. She can't get that corporate protection because of her behavior. This is structurally true in corporate entertainment and sports branding. Major corporate sponsors and top-tier PR firms look for predictability and risk mitigation. They want talent that can be managed and insulated. When a public figure has a history of engaging directly with internet trolls, breaking protocol to handle personal drama publicly, or getting into digital shouting matches, risk-averse corporations flag them as unpredictable or a liability. Instead of seeing an undisputed, historic world champion worthy of gold standard protection, corporate machines see a liability they can't control. So they stay away. This leaves her further exposed, forcing her to continue defending herself, which perpetuates the loop, the verdict. You are entirely accurate. Bunny XO can speak freely because the corporate machine acts as her silent shield, enforcing boundaries on how mainstream media treats her. Claressa Shields is left fighting a decentralized army with no shield, and by using her own voice as her weapon, she inadvertently feeds the algorithm and distances herself from the very corporate structures that could insulate her.
There you go. You were trying to say something?
Yeah, and I was gonna say that to me, I think that goes into people not wanting to play the quote unquote game. When you start talking about getting into the entertainment industry and corporate industries, there is a game that you're going to have to play, because the same thing, by you giving them something, that is where the protection is going to come from you. And otherwise, everything that you put out there, everything you do or say your entire life is going to be open up to public scrutiny, and it may or may not be positive for you. It may not even be true. So I mean, it's kind of crazy that it's even like that, but yeah.
And for me, it just goes to show, just like, I don't know if people like, for the fact that Google's AI is well versed in it and in the Black YouTube spaces, because when you watch the What Did You Build and you see me asking it and how it's breaking down, like, you can even ask it about, like, you just had me ask it about random YouTubers and how it's familiar with them. And it also talks about one of the reasons why the BWE space has all but disappeared. Their digital footprint is because a lot of the channels went dark. They hid their content, a lot of that stuff. But but just to go back here, the main point here is Claressa Shields right now, she's having a Samson moment. She just, and her mouth is her weakness. His hair was his weakness. Her mouth is hers. She needs to shut the fuck up and stop. Excuse me. She needs to shut up and stop responding. Period. Like, just shut up and stop responding to people. If you want to be solo, then you're gonna have to protect yourself. And I just get so angry because there is no protection for us as it is out here, and you can't stop, because listen, people who make content, they see what the algorithm wants to see, so they're going to produce the content. So she needs to just shut up. Are you there?
Oh, I'm right here. I am actually loving it, because it makes me think of all of the other not only content creators but entertainers that have gotten into this exact same situation, and it just makes me rethink what that looks like, why certain people got, there was nothing said about what they had going, and others there
Hmm.
was.
So yeah, so we don't have the corporate backing that a lot of these people have, and so you're not going to get the protection. And I would even say to people with just basic YouTube channels, if you listen to what was just outlined here, the don't feed the trolls thing is absolutely 100% legitimate. Every time you respond, you're just giving them more ammunition. So the best thing you can do for yourself is to stop responding to your trolls, because if you don't, it's just going to keep going.
And whether it had, for them, it has nothing to do with whether they think it's right or wrong, whether they believe you or not. They are trying to get views, and that's
Yep.
it. They're trying to get views and make money off of it. They're not actually trying to do the right thing, whatever that is supposed to be in that case. They're not. They're just trying to get views in any, by any means necessary. And so,
Yeah, they're not
it's
even
kind of,
concerned.
yeah.
So that's it, though. So that's just something to think about, guys. You think about the law of solid ground. If you haven't had a chance to go listen to last night's show, we covered the law of solid ground. You can go do that. But I hope you are reading the book. You have the book and the workbook, and maybe you have the 21 most powerful minutes in a leader's day, where you can go review the chapters and read the scriptures to go along with it. And I think maybe if not tonight, maybe tomorrow or something, I will come back and maybe we'll just sit and listen to Samson live and talk about the chapters when if Neil has time. Maybe we can fit that in this week.
I would like that. I would really like that.
Okay.
Now, will
So
we be able to stop and comment along the way or talk about
yeah,
it?
you just let me know. Just
Yes.
like with all things, like that's what I did with the. Now we're just gonna give commentary as we listen to things. So you just tell me where to stop, and we'll just jump in wherever we want.
That would be perfect.
Okay. And so we'll see you guys later on tonight on the Renaissance Woman Show. And we'll pick up on this whole idea about examining um, the Black YouTube space and why it looks the way it does. Jill, you got any final words for them?
At the moment, no, everything is good.
Well, thanks
Enjoyed
for
being
watching,
here.
everybody. I enjoyed you as well. Guys, as always, thanks for watching. Have a restful Sabbath. Shabbat Shalom.